Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough, and this is episode 757. Now, in this episode, we're really talking about why you should try to be more selfish. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Look, being selfish is a very bad thing. I even had to look up the definition of selfish, and it does not look pretty. It does not look good. But if you stay with me, we're going to figure out why it's of benefit to us to consider having more attention on yourself. Now, before we get into that, this is being broadcasted live on YouTube, and we get to have a chat with one another beforehand, and it's really, really nice. So if you ever feel like joining us, go to youtube.com/Joseph Clough. We're building a nice little community. I'm getting to know you, and really, we're getting requests and things like that. So those who attend, you get to be the chooser of subjects in many, many ways. And on top of that, you may notice on the podcast, there are some adverts on it, and you might not like some ads, and I get that. I don't get to choose the ads. They just get put there. But just bear in mind that you are serving this whole experience of me producing these episodes, 3 every single week. And I appreciate you listening or just muting. Look, and if you don't want to support, just skip it. It's only 30 to 60 seconds in the beginning, and you can just skip it if you really don't want to be a part of that. And I get it, I understand. And I've been on other podcasts, and they're like 7 or 8 minutes of advertising before you get into any content. But hopefully you understand as to why, because I want to fund the app. I want to be able to add more features and be able to help and serve more people. So if you're a part of that, I love it. And if you're not, absolutely fine as well. I truly understand. But getting back into today's episode, it is why you should try to be more selfish and why it's actually good for us. And I'll tell you why, especially for you as a listener. I mean, most of my listeners, more often than not, can have experiences of the imposter syndrome, anxiety, worry, fear, people pleasing, that low self-esteem, that low self-value, all of those kind of things. The fear of being rejected, the fear of being found out, the fear of getting help, the fear of failure, the fear of success. Now, if we are coming from that angle, if we are operating from an identity, a thought process, a feeling of worry, fear, anxiety, not being enough, not being worthy, it will create certain behaviors within us which causes us to be people pleasers. You may think about that. Do you feel like you are a people pleaser at times, where we feel like we've got to do too much to sometimes prove our worth or to receive some kind of validation, some external validation to make us feel good about ourselves, that we've received something from someone which reaffirms, oh, that must mean I'm okay. I'm not going to get found out today, or I'm not going to look silly and all those things. And the problem is, when you start to people please, when you start to seek mainly as a primary external validation from others, and that could be from your family, it could be from your children, it could be from your partner, it could be from your boss, it could be from your colleagues, it could be from your customers. It happens everywhere. And usually what we do in our life, or usually what we do in one thing, we tend to do in the everything. So our issues tend to not just show up in one area. They can bleed over to other areas of our life. So we go on this external validation, and what happens? Well, number one, we never really find and feel fulfilled, because otherwise you'd stop the people pleasing or stop the external validation. It's a pursuit that never really gets to the end goal of feeling good about yourself, because otherwise we would have stopped by now. And the other issue about it, by continually seeking external, doing things for other people all the time, you are starting to be depleted in your own energy. How do we know that? Well, anxiety, fear, worry creates physical and emotional and psychological stress. Now, if we begin to have more stress in the body than balance and harmony, what's going to happen? Well, we start to break down, right? We start to kind of have fatigue. We tend to have sometimes actual breakdowns. That stress can create maybe migraines. It can create ailments in the body. It can create fears or phobias. It's almost like our unconscious mind saying, I cannot handle anymore, when the body says no. So that causes this vicious loop. Why? Well, because we still want to people please. So then we keep on going and we go in this cycle of unhealthiness, of seeking external validation, which we never really receive. But yes, the consequence is physically feeling incongruent, a dis-ease of the body or a disorder of the body, because stress breaks the chain of good health. So why is it important to be more selfish? When you begin to allow your external focus of serving only others and begin to balance it out, not to give up on it, but even if you did temporarily give up on it for a while, that's okay as well. But once you start to put that external focus back on the inside, and you begin to ask yourself certain questions like, are my needs being met? Are my needs being met? Truly. And the chances are they won't be, because you won't be feeling a sense of inner peace and contentment and wholeness. If you think of wholeness, think of contentment, if you think of peace, there is a lack of disorder again, a lack of dis-ease in the system. So we need to then look on the inside and notice, are our values being fulfilled? Truly. And we will come to the conclusion that they're not. And then we got to go, well, how can I get my needs met without the external validation? Because really, you want internal validation. Yeah, to receive good feedback, I love it. I love receiving good feedback. I never reject it. I'm at peace with it. I used to have an issue with it, but now I'm gratefully in receiving of that, because if someone says something nice to you and they meant it, it'll be of a dishonor to not receive it, regardless of my thoughts on it. But once I begin to look at my own inner well-being and go, well, why am I a people pleaser? Why am I seeking external validation? Now, I usually say, don't ask for whys. Like, why am I acting silly? Well, you're going to find all the reasons, all the times that you've acted silly, to be able to concrete that mindset of, oh, that's why I'm silly. If you go, why am I not good enough? You're going to look at every event where you may have failed, or where you've been taken advantage of, or where you didn't succeed, and you're going to have these data points of validation of as to why you're not enough or why you're not worthy. But if we ask ourselves, why am I people pleasing? It may give us some good data initially, and it could even lead us back to that belief of I am not enough. The reason why I people please is I want external validation to realize, and hopefully in the hope of the hope of the hope, to feel enough by that external validation. So as we begin to hone in on the reasons as to why we feel like what we do, why we try to manage everything, why we're spinning all these plates, why we're trying to do all these actions to make sure we don't upset anyone, or that we have to be perfect. You ever experienced that you've got to get it perfect? And it is a horrible cycle to go through once again, because you cannot be perfect. It is impossible to be perfect, but that unconscious psychology makes us feel like we've got to live up to other people's expectations. Where do those expectations come from? That people pleasing, that needing to do all these things. Well, we've been programmed to do so. We've been programmed by our past experiences, whether it be the decisions we've made based on the significant emotional events, whether it because our mother or our father had high expectations and we had to live up to them, or whether it's society, whether it's culture, whether it be religion, whether it be fill in the blank. I don't care exactly where they came from, but I'm interested as to how we came to the conclusion of them, which is our past. And especially if we didn't know better, it's so much easier to be hypnotized to have this belief. Like if our parents did have a high expectation for us, it is easy for a 7-year-old to come to the conclusion that I've got to be perfect, I've got to do well at school. But it creates this self-sabotage, this never-ending feeling of never being enough. So why is it important? Remember to be selfish, because you're now starting to look after yourself. We've all heard of the analogy. I've said it for years and years and years. When you go on the plane, when they've read out their safety instructions, they say if you have children, make sure you put on the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it onto your children. Why? Well, you're going to be depleted with oxygen, life-saving oxygen, if you just look after other people, because you're going to just really kind of go, right? You can only do so much. You've got to put it on yourself first so you can be the best person to save your children on that plane. Makes sense. But when we think about it in reality, that if we're just trying to put these metaphorical oxygen masks for our bosses, for our customers, for our children, for our partner, you are going to get burnt out. You need to go on the inside first and become aware of the reasons as to why you are going for these. Consider what is really happening here. What is the mindset that I'm having that makes me feel like I've got to have some kind of validation? And usually it will be an identity complex. An identity complex, I mean like a conflicted identity of who we should be. I usually think about it as I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I'm not enough, I'm not of value. All of those things which generates the idea of why we need that external validation. You've got to make a decision, and hopefully it is today, that you're going to do what is right and you're going to do what you really want out of life. In the knowledge, you being temporarily selfish on your well-being, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, your physical well-being, because you know the consequence of not doing so. And if you don't, paint the image in your mind if you stay the same for the next year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 20 years, all the way up to our passing. That moment beforehand, are you going to look back and go, I lived and loved life. I was able to experience a sense of self-worth and self-value. Yes, I supported people, but I also felt it on the inside. If that is the case, that you're not having that experience, it is better to interrupt the pattern now to avoid the conflict getting worse, because it usually does. It doesn't usually get better or easier. In fact, it usually expands and bleeds over into other areas of our life. But if you start to stop and make a decision and go, right now is me time. You see, when people enter my program, they've made a decision that they want to change. They've drawn a line in the sand. They're willing to do whatever it takes. They've decided over fear to decide to do what is right. And then when we get to that place, my system is built to go, look, just for 1 hour a week, that's all it takes to let go of these issues in my program. But just for 1 hour a week, it's going to be you time. If you're in a relationship, you let your partner know that on Sundays at 4 p.m. is my hour of going on the inside and using the processes of transformation to let go of the conflict. If you've got children, you make sure you let them know that's what it is. In fact, I remember growing up when I was about 14, 15, my dad used to meditate and do yoga, and he would let us know. We got myself there, my 2 older brothers, and he called it his quiet time. We knew that was his time of quietness. We respected it. Like, why not? But when you carve out that time to go, I'm invested in myself for this period of time, everyone begins to know it when you put out your boundaries to it. It's not bad to go, look, I need 1 hour. I mean, sometimes you'll need more if you use other things, other systems and all those types of things. Whatever it is. However you change, whatever you do, like some ways are quick, some will take for years. Whatever happens, I don't really mind. You choose the path of transformation you want. But I would highly suggest you having your quiet time. Carve out that 1 hour, 2 hours per week if you need that extra time because you're doing it by yourself or what have you. But set out and enforce those boundaries and go, look, this is my time. And this is the consequence of what happens when you do this. When you get your mindset right, when you say, for example, give up the people pleasing, you give up the self-sabotage, you give up the limiting thoughts, the anxieties, the worries, the fears, the hurts, the guilt, the shame. When you give up those past significant events which have caused you to get to this moment, once you've made that decision to be able to let it all go, and therefore you acquire that sense of belief of knowing you are enough, knowing that you're of value, knowing that you're certain. It brings in the confidence, it gives you the clarity, it gives a sense of peace in your body. It's stress-free. Yeah, you go through life, but it's not like it used to be. You actually see the things as opportunities. You have the resources to deal with the external. And when you have the resources to deal with the external, guess what happens? Well, everyone in your life will benefit from you. Not the imposter you of people pleasing, but the you that is self-certain, that is worthy. Therefore, you want to give and you want to share. You actually deliver in the right way. You actually meet other people's needs, who are good people if they are, in a more profound way rather than an exhausted, limited way. That is what you've got to do. When I let go of my issue, like 21 years ago now, I used to live a life of dread, anxiety, the fear of not being enough, the fear of failure, the fear of success, and the fear of not getting help. When I lived that life, it was exhausting emotionally. It was like a weight on my shoulders, a pain in my stomach, a vibration of anxiety in my heart and my chest. That's not healthy. Yet I was still trying to people please, make sure everything was okay, make sure that I could get external validation by trying to over-deliver on things, but never ever doing so. When I let go of my issue, guess what began to happen? Well, you're listening to it. Once I let go of my issue, it actually caused me and allowed me to then go, I want to help other people. I want to help all the people I possibly can. In fact, I began to do it for free in a majority of my ways. We were actually talking before the show. We're almost at 17,000 YouTube subscribers. We've hit 1.9 million on the views there. We did 160,000 or maybe it was a little bit more, I can't remember now, but let's just say it was 160,000 downloads on the podcast in the last 30 days. Well, that didn't come from me being stressed out, seeking external validation. It came out from knowing who I am and my worth to then want to help more people do the exact same thing. It energized me because I had the self-validation and the self-certainty within myself. Now, I'm not going to say that once you let go of your issue, you're going to start a podcast and an app or a YouTube channel. I don't mean that. But as an analogy that hopefully you can relate to, it is so much easier to love on people, support people, to be able to serve people when you serve yourself first. When you go, I'm enough to know that I've got to look after my well-being. I know that I need to carve out that time out of my week to be able to then, in the end, having been free of my issue, to then serve those I want to serve by choice, not by expectation. I'm going to say that again. It is not by choice. Sorry, it's not by expectation, it's by choice. You are choosing to do it because you are energized and you are profoundly passionate and purposeful in all that you do. When you go to your career, when you go into your job, when you've got a business owner and you're serving your customers, you're loving on them, you're connecting with them, when you're with your partner, with your children, when you are the example of what can be done, they are magnetized too. You are being the perfect role model. They look up to you. If you're in business, when you are shining your light bright and you are so self-certain, guess what? They believe in you because you're authentically the powerful you. When you're with your partner and you know your worth, they see the light in your eyes just glint and you sparkle, and they see the most beautiful thing right in front of them because they see you, they hear you, they feel you, because you are being the authentic person that you deserve to be. When you're around your children, you are the example of what can be done. The most terrifying thing that I can imagine, if I were to be a parent, which I'm not, so feel free to shoot me down here. But if I had children and I kept on staying not enough and not worthy, even if I said all the right things to my children, they would pick it up. We said this in the beginning, I think, but the very first area of our life, the first 7 years, is the imprint age in sociology, and the other 7 years beyond that, 7 to 14, is the modeling. Regardless what you say to your children, they get the unconscious communication. And I do not, if I had children, want them to replicate the same story. Let me play out a scenario for you to hopefully scare you into going, I need to look after myself and not keep on serving and being exhausted. If, for example, you had low self-esteem, which caused you to choose partners who took advantage of you, that caused you to be anxious and stressed out every single day. And then say your young daughter was seeing you, looking up to you, loving you, but sees the devalue in yourself despite saying all the right words. That daughter will feel like that's the way life is. That's a conditioning. That to me is horrifying. Where we change it into a son, how to treat women in that case if it were a female. We can change it into man. It doesn't matter. We need to be strong examples, and it's not through the words we say, it's about showing up energetically, knowing that. So we have to stop the story. And the reason why I say that as well is because, look, I said near the beginning, you were probably modeling maybe your parents growing up, maybe those high expectations. If we carry on that same story, we're allowing our future children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great to carry on the exact same story that was passed down to us. It is our duty to stop that story, to give it up, and to be all on you to make the change that you desire. And that means you actually inspire your children. And we can change it to brother, to sister, to partner, to customer, to employee, to boss, all of those things. It works in the same way no matter how you paint the picture. Some could be more severe, but it's important when you show up differently and you look after yourself, you become the shining light for that person in the authentic way. And if you don't believe me, if you say with Joseph, I say all the right words when I'm talking to my child or to my boss or my clients or my customers, and they get it, they're not getting it. 93% of all communication is unconscious. Those words you say, when you say to a child that, look, you're great and you're worthy, that 7% is the words. 93% is our physiology. It's our tonality, and that's all unconscious. So if you play out the scenario going into a meeting and you're saying all the good things, but you feel like an imposter and you're people pleasing, they receive that unconsciously. The brain is taking like 2 billion bits of information per second, and we are only aware consciously around 7 plus or minus 3 bits of information consciously. But your unconscious mind is absorbing all that other information just like them. So when you're in that meeting, their unconscious mind is absorbing all that unconscious information. They see through it. So that's why it's of our duty to be able to go, I'm going to communicate effectively, powerfully, and profoundly, knowing I am worthy, if that was the issue, for example. But ultimately, you've got to make a decision and go, I'm going to be more selfish today. I'm going to plan out that time to work upon myself and to be the best person I can. For when I do, I show up. I actually help and support and love on people more than ever before. More than you did with the issue. That's what I want you to understand. You may disagree with me. I get it. And that's okay. We don't have to agree. But if you go on the inside and you feel like that resonates with you, that is why we need to be a little bit more selfish, because when we do, we'll actually eventually be more selfless, because we have the energy to support those in our life. We show up congruently in our words and our thoughts and our feelings and our actions in a way which will make changes in the world. The ripple effect will go far and wide. So I hope you'd enjoy this episode. Now, of course, if any of that resonated with you and you are decisive and you're ready to be selfish, you're ready to be selfish and invest in yourself, like you're ready to go all in and like invest financially and time to finally let go of this, even if you've had it for your whole life, even if you don't even believe it's possible. I hear it over and over again. It is so fascinating to see the experience of someone transforming before you, to suddenly realize their power and what it actually does for their career and their business and their family and their children and all of that stuff. It is truly remarkable. But you've got to make that decision to make that change. If you want to speak to us, it's a one-to-one call with us. And you just go to josephclough.info/talk. You book a time, fill out an application. In other words, we want to understand where you are, what you want to do, what you want to achieve. And then when you attend to the live Zoom call on a one-to-one, we consider what you want to let go of. We consider what you want to achieve. We carve out by understanding what's really stopping you. And then we create a custom plan for you. It is world class. I believe it. I put my whole heart into this. You're going to have a team around you supporting you and showing you how to make that change. So that is josephclough.info/talk. Now, hopefully that resonated with you once again. I really, really want you I wish I could get inside everyone's mind and show them that this is what it is, to be able to make that change, because I've been on both sides. I felt not enough. I felt not worthy. I felt like an imposter. I felt like stress and anxiety. And I know if I stayed that way, it would have been an absolute pain. And I want to get people out of pain. So with that, my friends, just know you have everything within you to make this change. And I look forward to speaking to you on a future episode. And I'm going to be speaking to everyone else on the live stream in just a few moments. So let's go ahead, decide, declare, and be a little bit more selfish so you can be a bit more selfless afterwards. Many thanks and goodbye.